Good morning, girls. In the last class, we were discussing about some of the characteristics of the Mesopotamian civilization. We learnt about their architecture, their involvement in trade and commerce, and the occupations that they practiced. Now, today we'll be learning about the religious practices, religious beliefs of the Mesopotamians. Religious beliefs. Religion played an important role in the life of the Mesopotamians. They worshipped many gods, and each city had a patron god of its own. So, religion was very important in the life of the Mesopotamians. They considered religion as an important factor in their lives, and they had many gods. It was not only one god that they worshipped, but they worshipped many gods, and every city had a patron god. The word patron, it means protector or a guardian. So they had many guardian gods. Now we have already learned that Mesopotamia, it consisted of many city states, and each of these city states, it had a city and some area around it. There were many city states like Sumer, Babylonia, Assyria, etc. So every city had a patron god, and these Mesopotamians, they believed that these cities, they were protected by these patron gods. For example, Nannar, the moon god, was the patron god of Ur. Now, Ur, it was a city in Sumer, and the Mesopotamians, they considered Nannar as a patron god of Ur. The four most important gods worshipped by the Sumerians were An, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag. These four were regarded as the creator deities who created all other gods. Now we saw that Ur, it was a city in Sumer, and Nannar was the patron god of Ur. Now these Sumerians, they worshipped many other gods. Among those gods, the four most important were An, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag. And the Mesopotamians, they believed that they regarded these four as the creator deities. Deity means a divine person or a god. So they regarded these four as the creator gods, and they believed that it was these four gods who created all other gods. One of the duties of a Mesopotamian king was to take care of gods and build their temples. Such temples were called the ziggurats. So there were many. The Mesopotamians, they had many gods, and each god had a temple of its own. These temples, they were known as the ziggurats. So it was a duty of the king, of the Mesopotamian king, to take care of that god and to make sure that temples were built for each god. Ziggurat means the hill of heaven, and were mud brick temples built on artificial mounds in every city. So the word ziggurat, it means hill of heaven, and these ziggurats, these temples, they were built from mud bricks. Now mud brick means brick, it is made of mud and it is air dried. These mud bricks, they are kept in air and they are dried in air. So the temples, the ziggurats, they were made of mud bricks, and they were built on artificial mounds in every city. Now mound means a raised surface or a raised platform. So the Mesopotamians, they built their ziggurats, they built their temples on a raised platform which is raised from the level of ground. Now there was a reason why these Mesopotamians, they built their ziggurats on raised platform, because they believed that when God appeared on earth, God would come first in the higher places, in the higher places which were in the higher platforms, and that is the reason why the Mesopotamians, they built their ziggurats on higher platforms, because they believed that when God comes, he would appear first, he would come first in the ziggurats, because it was higher from the ground level. These temples had their own importance. Now the temples, the ziggurats, they were not only places of worship and praise, but they had some other importance as well. Temples served as the centers of education. They were centers of education. Education was imparted in these temples. They were used as observatories by the astrologers to study the stars and planets. Now these ziggurats, they were used as observatories. Observatory means it's a place from where you can observe stars and planets. It's a room or a building which has all the facilities to observe planets and stars. So they were used as observatories by astrologers to study the stars and planets. Sometimes they served as the centers of trade. Sometimes they were also the center of trade. Trade used to happen took place in these ziggurats. Now we learn about the contribution of the Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamian script. Script means writing. First we learn about the Mesopotamian writing. The Mesopotamians developed a script of their own called cuneiform, as the symbols used were wedge-shaped. Cuneus in Latin means wedge. Now the Mesopotamians, they developed their own form of writing. They developed their own script, and the script was known as a cuneiform. Now this cuneiform, it comes from the Latin word cuneus, and this word, it means wedge. Now wedge, this is how a wedge, this is a shape of a wedge. Now you can see it has a V-shaped end and the end is thin. It has a thinning end and a V-shaped end. So that is a shape of a wedge. Now all their script, the symbols in their script, they were wedge shaped, and that is why it was known as a cuneiform. They used to write from right to left. Now we all know that most of the languages, they have their writings from left to right, whereas this cuneiform, it was written from right to left. But at that time, they had neither the paper nor the pen or pencil to write. In those times, there were no pens, no papers or pencils to write these scripts. So they used to write on wet clay tablets with a stylus made of reeds or bones. So they made tablets out of wet clay, and they used a stylus to write on those tablets. Now stylus means it means a pointed instrument that is used for writing. So these stylus, they were made of reeds or bones. Now reeds are those grass-like plants which has a hollow stem. The stem is hollow, and these Mesopotamians, they made the stylus, the writing instrument, with reeds or with bones. To preserve the written text, they used to bake these tablets in fire so that each tablet served as a page of a book. Now the word preserve, it means to protect or to keep from harm. So these wet clay tablets, the tablets, they were made of wet clay, so they could get destroyed fast. In order to preserve, in order to protect those written texts, they used to bake these tablets in fire. They used to bake it in fire so that every tablet was protected, and each of these tablets, they served as a page of a book. Several such clay tablets made a complete book. Now you know a book has many pages. Similarly, these tablets, the baked tablets, they were considered as a single page of a book, and many tablets combined together, they made a whole book. They were considered as a complete book. Next, we learn about the contribution of Mesopotamians in mathematics, in the field of mathematics. The Mesopotamians had great interest in mathematics and calculations. They were good at mathematics and calculations. They knew how to count for precise measurements. Precise means exact or correct measurements. So they knew how to count for correct measurements, for the exact measurements. The numbers from 1 to 9 were represented by making the signs for 1 and repeating it many times. Now in those times, there were no numbers like 1, 2, 3, etc. So they would make a sign for 1 and they would repeat the same sign many times. For example, if this was the sign for 1, they would repeat. If this line represented 1, they would repeat these lines for the other numbers as well. They would put 2 lines for 2, they would put 3 lines for 3. So similarly, they would repeat the sign of 1 many times to represent the rest of the numbers. They counted by 60s. So everything was counted in terms of 60s. In fact, the Mesopotamians were the first to divide an hour into 60 minutes and a minute into 60 seconds, a practice which we follow till today. So we all know that an hour, it has 60 minutes and a minute is made of 60 seconds. So it was the Mesopotamians who first found, who divided this hour into 60 minutes and minute into 60 seconds. The Mesopotamians were also interested in geometry. They had great interest in mathematics, calculations, and also in geometry. The Pythagoras theorem originated from Mesopotamia. Now this Pythagoras theorem, it is a theorem in geometry, and this theorem is also, the origin of Pythagoras theorem is Mesopotamia. They counted the circumference of the circle in 360 degree. Now you all know this is a circle. Now half of this is 180 degree and the whole thing, the whole circle, it makes 360 degree. So this whole thing, this 360 degrees, this is known as the circumference of a circle. So it was these Mesopotamians who counted that, who said that the circumference of a circle is made in 360 degree. So that is all for today, girls. So today we learnt about the religious beliefs of Mesopotamia and their contribution. The contribution of Mesopotamia in the field of writing, script, and in the field of mathematics. So I want you all to go through these topics. That's all for today, girls. Thank you.